Hi, welcome back to the Gore-ient Express. This is Steven here with When Nerds Have Nightmares. Oh, there goes Mothra. Today we're working on Kaiju Creek, and this is the layout I'm shooting for. It will change in the end, but it's kind of cramped as it is, so I spread it out a bit later, you'll see. This is going to be one giant monster fight over a creek bed. We have our Stay Puft guy, Godzilla, Clover back there, Ghidorah, King Kong, the Blob, and Mothra, who won't stay up. Before they fight, they're going to need paint, so let's start with Godzilla. Godzilla is the easiest to paint. He's mostly one color, soft black, mixed with a little Prussian blue, but we'll add his atomic charge up later. There are so many bumps and ridges in the texture of Godzilla, I'm just trying to make sure I get most of them filled with the black-blue mixed paint. I don't want pure black primer showing necessarily. I bought this glow-in-the-dark paint a while ago, specifically for a Buddha Godzilla I painted. It just looks pale grayish until you hit it with a UV light. Then, when I turn the lights off, we have an atomic charge. That's what we're going for. For the Buddha, I laid down several thick layers. I don't want that off-white color if I can avoid it this time, so I did about 5 thin down layers. This part kinda just looks like I'm waving around a brush expecting magic to happen, but I am very lightly dry brushing on some pavement color with a little bit of steel gray for some highlights. This will catch all the bumps and ridges I talked about earlier. You can compare the light parts to the dark parts. Very subtle, but enough. Alexa, office lights off.
Okay.
As you can see, our spikes still glow, but aren't as obvious in the non-glow state, if that makes sense. For Godzilla's atomic beam, I'm going to use an acrylic rod covered in hot glue spirals that I'll tease with this little toothpick. I slowly and randomly turned the rod as I was spiraling the hot glue to give it a more random look. And I'm left with a shiny, irregular beam. Does anyone else out there like to play with these hot glue gers? They're so satisfying. They're like the fidget toy of the crafter's desk. Anyway, back to painting the rod. I gave the breath beam the same treatment as the spikes on Godzilla's back. I did significantly more layers of the glow-in-the-dark paint, probably around 8 or 9 passes, to really saturate that energy flow. And now the beam glows brighter than the fins, which is what I wanted. Look at Godzilla now, attack ready. That's awesome. Next up is Monkey Man King Kong, the new mean one. I mean, I guess they're all mean. Now I know he's not a monkey, he's an ape, but that doesn't sound as cool. Anyway, he gets a very dark brown base coat. I mixed burnt umber with dark gray and a little black. This print I found of King Kong has him holding the axe made out of Godzilla's fin. We're going to use that later. And because he's always dusty looking, a medium dry brush of trail tan. I applied some pigment powder off camera as well. And to remain consistent with the other Godzilla components, glow-in-the-dark paint returns. His eyes are so small it's really hard to get the pupils lined up, let alone painting irises. So I'm not going to try.
Come on, bub, for old time's sake, huh?
Did you just call me Blob?
No, but
I couldn't find a good clip of the Blob, so here's an X-Man. The Blob gets painted with a base of crimson red. And after that's dry, a very thin application of grape wash with a little drop of black. This will sink in between the pustules. Ugh, gross word. I used a paper towel to absorb the topmost layer of excess wash, but left it in the crevices. This is where it starts to look gross. I'm sponging on peachy pink. By using a larger sponge, it will allow paint to only reach the highest points of the model. Continuing with the sponge, but now with the satin finish peach. I go even lighter on the sponging, this time just to give some highlights. I applied 2 coats of Zoop Goop. In earlier videos I was more strategic with my varnish placement, but fuck it. The Blob is a slimy boy. I wasn't shy with just pouring it on. I wouldn't recommend doing this over paper like I did because, duh, the varnish stuck to the paper. It just added a few more minutes of me tearing paper away from the underside. For Clover, I base coated with an olive gray color. This will mostly be buried by the final layer, but that's why we call it a base coat. I used the same color, but then added a bunch of light gray and water to make a glaze. Like a wash, this will settle into the musculature and creases. I wiped away larger pools that had formed, and now I'm left with slight tonal variation. A very splotchy spongification of a camel tan mixed with some satin peach. By using that big sponge again, the paint is unable to reach smaller nooks and crannies, creating shadows. A very thin wash of Georgia clay with a touch of crimson. This is obviously simulating blood and battle damage. Now he's all bruised up. King Ghidorah gets a simple paint job of antique gold. I mean, that's kinda it. At least based on the reference images I'm using. Fine, I guess to make him slightly more interesting, I'll use a thin bronze paint to highlight the wing finger thingers, and then move on to the horns. I did an extremely thin brown wash, but I don't even bother showing you because it's hardly noticeable, if at all. And as I've demonstrated a few times already this video, I'm not good at eyes. And this motherfucker has 6 of them. I'd say I fail about 5 of them. Oof, the fluorescent paint glowing really highlights the unevenness, but as long as you don't stare at any one of them too long, it's fine. I decided to scrap the skyscrapers because they weren't in proper scale with the rest of the table, which is a shame because I'm happy with the paint job I did on them. My first time trying object source sliding. I wanted Godzilla's beam to go right through this building, but that'll have to be saved for a future project, I guess. Hi. Moving on to my favorite character in this section, Mothra. She has the smallest lightning-shaped indents that I'm going to paint marigold yellow. They're really hard to see on camera. I couldn't film it because I had to hold the model about 3 centimeters from my face to see, but after 2 coats I'm left with this. She has these bullseye patterns on her wings. These get a few layers of red, just plain old primary red. And the pattern on her smaller wings gets painted a very similar looking cadmium orange. Her thorax gets painted an almond milky color. This is just a base. Ah! New angle jump scare. Everything not painted gets painted black. The belly, the face, the rest of the wing pattern, everything. Metallic icy blue for her eyes. I don't know if this will work, even though I'm recording this in the future and I obviously know the answer. Editing is all lying, folks. Anyway, this is static grass from the farm area of the field. I'm going to sprinkle this over her body to make it furry. It totally works, and makes her look cute, I think. Like, ubu kawaii cute. To finish off the painting for my monsters, I just diluted some blue alcohol ink with a few drops of alcohol, and used it as a wash for the atomic beam. This will allow it to keep its translucency so it still glows under black light while looking blue in regular light. My footage was all messed up, user error. But for the creek bed, I just laid down some gravel and added a wash to make the dirt look wet. I'll add varnish later when I fill the creek with resin, in a later video. I also added a section of static grass for some visual interest. There's a plan for that area later, once I get my 3D printer out of commission, that is. I lined the creek with a few trees and logs. These trees are bent because this is where the blob is pulling through. These trees are burnt because they will be in the way of Godzilla's atomic breath. Now I can start gluing everything in place and prepare for some final shots. By happy accident, it turns out my train engine can just barely squeeze under Clover. This will look cool when I get the camera operational. I mean, it looks like I can just barely squeeze a piece of paper under it here. I hope this isn't a problem later. Anyway, enjoy these closing final shots. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment who your favorite kaiju is. Thanks for watching.